Welcome to the best of first-person episodes from Phantoms and Monsters. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads.
Alien Comforts Experiencer. This event took place when I was about 15 or 16 years old, living in Spring Creek, Nevada. It's a very small town about 10 miles from Elko, Nevada. I was staying at my friend's aunt's house, and that is where I was living at the time. I slept on the couch in the living room normally because there weren't enough rooms at her house. One night I woke up at 3 a.m. for no reason. I looked right into the kitchen from the couch and noticed the time. Then, I swung my head to my left and instantly jumped and froze with fear, as I noticed the living room door was open so wide it was touching the wall, and standing in the living room doorway were 3 4-foot-tall beings with heads too large for their bodies. One was standing in front, and the other 2 were about 1 foot behind the front one and on the left and right side. There was a light coming from behind them shining through the door that was a white color with a tint of light blue. I was unable to make out their facial features due to the lighting coming from only the back of them, but there was no question they were there standing clear as day. As soon as I noticed them and jolted from fear, the front one zoomed over to me on the couch. I didn't notice how it moved because it was so quickly standing over me as I remained laying there. I looked up at it and of course my adrenaline was pumping. I felt a little hand rub my cheek in a comforting way, and in my head I instantly told myself, it's okay. Not even kidding, the second it touched my cheek my adrenaline stopped, and heart rate went back to normal almost instantaneously, which I still don't know how that is even possible. It's like it controlled my emotions by touching my cheek. The feeling I got when it touched my cheek was overwhelming love and comfort and happiness. It's like it was telling me to not be worried, and it meant no harm. The weirdest thing is that I even looked up at it and smirked with comfort and knew it was okay to go back to sleep. Who would go back to sleep with some foreign being standing right above them? The whole encounter lasted only but 30 seconds or under. I am now 26 years old, and ever since then I have had roughly 5 to 6 UFO sightings that are undoubtedly UFOs based on them defying all physics. The first UFO I had witnessed was with about 8 other strangers at a gas station in the same small town, and I was about 15 or 16 as well. I just can't recall if it was before this encounter with extraterrestrials or after. I still have a never-ending curiosity and still feel blessed to have had the experiences with extraterrestrials that I have. I am sitting at work at this moment and felt compelled to share this with you all, even though it was so long ago. Feels great to make others aware that they are not alone, and I too know what is out there.
My alien surgery. Back home in the UK, in my little cottage with my baby boy. I just put him down for a nap, and I was pottering around when I developed a severe pain in the tummy. I went down like a bag of potatoes. I couldn't stand, the pain was so painful I thought I was dying. All I kept thinking of was my son and who would love him and care for him if I'm not here. After a few minutes, the pain went away, as quickly as it came on. However, I contacted my doctors to book an appointment to check what was going on. My doctor examined me and my tummy was tender, so he sent me for an endoscopy, which is where they send a camera down your throat to have a look at what is going on. A week before my endoscopy, I had an amazing experience which I'll never forget. I woke up in the middle of the night and felt a presence in my room. I slowly shrugged it off and started to fall back to sleep. However, I became aware of 3 childlike alien beings on my bed. I didn't feel scared and I stood up and I held hands with 2 of them, one on one side of me and the other 2 aliens on the other side of me. My bedroom wall then started to spin and turned into a porthole, and all 4 of us walked through. We came to a massive room, with lines of computers and a large computer screen on the main wall, very much set up like a NASA mission control center, but instead of humans at each computer there were aliens. The room was white, everything was white, and on the large screen on the main wall there was a famous male celebrity, and I knew they were studying this male celebrity. I then looked down at the aliens that I was with, and instantly knew that these 3 little guys were also studying me, and that they knew far more about me than I did about myself. They had been studying me right from the beginning of my life on Earth. My next scene, I remember I was lying on a medical bed, and there was another alien, which looked exactly like the childlike aliens, but she was tall and adult-like. I knew she was female and she spoke to me using telepathy. She started the operation and I started to scream, and I mean scream, and she stopped what she was doing and told me off in a very stern way. She said the pain wasn't real, and that I actually can't feel anything and to be quiet. I did what she asked. She pulled 2 worm-like creatures out of my tummy. They wiggled and looked very much alive. I was shocked at what came out of me and disgusted. She said there was one left in my tummy, but for some reason she left it in there. The last scene I remember was being outside, sitting at a table with the 3 childlike aliens having a cup of coffee. There were aliens walking to what seemed like work and I was drinking coffee. I found it hilarious that they also had coffee and drank it like us humans. What I also found strange that even though I was the only human there that I could see, no one gave me a second glance. It must have been common for them to see humans, I suppose. I went for my endoscopy a week later at my local hospital, and they just found inflammation of the stomach. However, I feel that these beings helped me in some way and maybe even healed my stomach. I'm not 100% sure, but that is my conclusion at the moment. Even though this was my first conscious memory of being invited to an alien world, I feel I must have been there many times before. I'm not sure why I was allowed to remember that experience, maybe to help with the healing process. I would love to know what those worm-like creatures were and how they got into my stomach. The worm-like creatures they extracted from me reminds me of the scene in the first Matrix movie, which I find interesting.
The Golden Boy. The incident I am about to relate happened some 50 years ago. I was visiting my grandparents who lived in an old farmhouse in central Pennsylvania. My cousin D, 1 year younger, was there as well. We rose super early each morning, as was the practice when visiting there. At Grandma's, those that did not get out of the house before breakfast got a chore list that would take all morning. Dave and I were determined to avoid that list. The house stood on top of a hill and was some distance from the road, with a long drive leading up to a car parking area. The ground on either side of the driveway could best be classified as untended meadow, with copses of trees sporadically scattered throughout. From the car park in front of the house, you look down and outward the road some 500 yards away. This is where Dee and I stood that morning. There was a small stand of pine trees about halfway down the hill. These were young trees, not more than 9 feet tall. We knew these trees well, as they were the impediment to every hill roller sled run we ever attempted down that slope. Today, however, we never even got to start the downhill fun. "What the hell is that?" one of us asked. "Beats the hell out of me," the other answered. Under the nearest pine tree, there was a figure. It appeared to be made of a golden metal, which glittered in the sunlight. It was about 3 feet tall, as best as we could determine from our uphill angle. From the shoulders down, it seemed to be wrapped or swaddled in golden cloth. This extended the entire length of the creature, making it look as though it was in a form-fitted sleeping bag. On its head was a helmet or headdress, also gold. When we first saw it, it was facing to our left, so we were looking at its golden left profile. The sight of this thing made us both freeze in place, barely breathing. We stared down at it for a time-distorted period, a minute. Suddenly, the thing changed its head. It did not turn its head. It had been looking straight ahead, at a spot somewhere to our left. Then it was looking directly at us. The head did not move through all the intermediate positions. The transformation was instant. But then, a wave of dread and terror rolled over the two of us. I have never before, or since, felt anything so intensely alien and malignant. It hated us. Neither of us were the most athletic of kids, but I beat Dave over the fence by a good 4 feet. Apparently we burst into the kitchen babbling incoherently about a golden boy down the hill. It took us a good half hour to convince Grandpa that there really would be something worth seeing if he went out with us, and of course, there wasn't. Nothing on the ground, nothing near the tree. But that image of a golden boy, with the most intense nastiness in his gaze, that will never go away. I used the term golden boy as that is how the family story has evolved, but it was no boy. It was humanoid, as best as the distance would reveal, but that sense of malice and dread made it impossible to stick around for more details. And I was 9 or 10 at the time, in my defense. In the 50 years since, I have never heard of or read a similar encounter. Has the golden boy ever crossed your path? Love the site and the work that you do. Thank you. MB.
UFO encounter leads to possible alien intrusion. I was 9 years old living in the projects of Linwood, California in 1972. One late afternoon several neighbors began to crowd in front of our building, which was 2 stories. They were excitedly talking and pointing above our home. We, my parents, brother, uncle and aunt, went outside and saw a glowing oval object hovering over our roof. My father put me on his shoulders so that I could see better, but it began to float off towards some trees. My father along with other neighbor fathers, chased it as long as they could before it disappeared. That evening I awoke suddenly in my dark room I shared with my brother and began to see a glowing coming from the hallway. It got brighter until this stick-thin glowing figure with a large oval head walked by. Then, others began to go the other way, and I was terrified they would hurt my mother, who was 9 months pregnant and who I feared would die in childbirth, until one came into my room and began to look around, picking up objects, opening drawers beginning near the door, and finally reaching my bed. The whole time I was sitting in shock, not breathing, with the sheets pulled over my nose. It saw me, sat on the side of my bed and looked at me in the eyes. It glowed a greenish hue with large dark eyes. That was the last thing I remember before I awoke the following morning.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.